Hey guys, how's it going? It's Philip with Trade Genius. In this video, I wanted to discuss the S-curve adoption and Bitcoin. A lot of the talk through 2017 was that Bitcoin was in a bubble and that it was going to collapse. Well, here we are, about 2 weeks away from the end of the year, and not only is Bitcoin almost hit $20,000, it's going at a rate that's actually starting to go parabolic. And sometimes when something looks like a bubble, it might actually be what's called an S-curve adoption. And typically you see that with new technology or very disruptive technology. What's interesting about Bitcoin is that you're actually seeing the value of this asset grow with the adoption rate. And it's not something that we've quite seen before. This is kind of an entirely new asset class. So to kind of give you guys a visualization of S-curve adoption rates, and some of you probably already know what that is, but we can take a look at some charts and kind of look at where we are in comparison to Bitcoin. So we have different things. If you notice that earlier, like in the early 1900s, and as we progress into the mid 1900s, S-curve adoptions were a little slower to take hold, and then they peaked out, and it also spanned several decades. This would be major things like telephone, TV, electricity, air travel, things of that nature, cars, color TV, radio. But as we progress into the 2000s, you'll notice that all of these S-curve adoption rates start to go a little bit more parabolic and vertical. So this would be stuff like internet, digital cameras, social media, smartphones, tablets, things of that nature. And so here we have Bitcoin, which has been kind of under the radar until probably this last year. We're starting to see more mainstream exposure, but we're just starting into that. So if what we're seeing is basically price reflecting adoption rate, then this has a scary amount to go yet, and we've just never seen anything like this. If you look at another view of the adoption and S-curve, so essentially you can almost say that this line here is the price, because it seems like price is just reflecting adoption rate. So this is breaking down the time that we go through the different phases of adoption. So I will argue that we were probably somewhere in here for adoption. And now we're moving into the early adopters phase. We're starting to go up. And then we move into early majority, late majority, and then the laggards. And this curve also is relative to volatility. And then once you get near full saturation, your volatility dies down. And this is where Bitcoin becomes very stable in price. And then you might see more of a desire to use it in currency type transactions versus during this phase of a store of value, because it's appreciating so quickly. And so that's why right now it's more so looked at as a digital gold. So if you look at price on a chart, and if this was representative of S-curve adoption, we need more time to really quantify that relationship. But basically, you could have a move like this S-curve wise, and then you start going like that. But if that's the case, we're going to be hitting $1 million by the end of next year, and that would probably imply somewhere in the order of 16 trillion. And this is taking into account, this is kind of a rough calculation, taking into account what would be actually circulating supply, taking into account lost coins and stuff like that. So 16 trillion in market cap. To put that into perspective, gold is at 8 trillion. So it would double the gold. So that would be a very aggressive adoption rate in terms of money. Now, there's about $90.7 trillion in global money supply. So that would just be a portion of that, not a big portion, but I would assume you would probably have to see something on the order of central banks. And there's been some talk of central banks actually would be looking at cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, as the market cap grows, because it becomes a hedge against inflation and against inflationary fiat. So they would actually they could adopt that legally as a form of instrument that they would use to implement part of what they hold in their holdings. So and really with the global money supply and the amount of quantitative easing that's happened, we are kind of in a perfect storm for Bitcoin to actually really catapult in value, especially if the inflation wave hits, and many think that that's going to happen. Another thought could be that we get parabolic moves that kind of go up like this, and then we come down, and then we go higher parabolically. And you don't really have one big parabolic blow off, but you have a series of them. And maybe this trajectory is kind of an average. Price Fork just basically tries to take a measurement of a trajectory and then project it out. As you can see, and I've revised these before. This is probably my fourth revision higher. And now we're projecting out to at least to the end of next year. We could be well into the 500,000 range, which is that's the equivalent of the gold market cap. So I don't think we've seen anything like this, and I don't think we're going to see a chart anything like what Bitcoin is capable of doing because of all these different factors. So basically what I would recommend is, even though Bitcoin, yes, it's at 20,000 and it's going to be volatile, and you'll probably have opportunities to buy it on 20% dips or more here and there, but don't be afraid of the price. You can buy fractions of Bitcoin. Go ahead and, I would recommend just getting as much as you can, because there's so little Bitcoin. There's 21 million total. We have 7 billion people on this planet, and you have big players that are going to be looking at investing large chunks. I know of one instance where someone who has access to a lot was offered up to 50,000 Bitcoin to close a deal to gain a large portion of them before the end of the year. So people are seeing that we're basically looking at a drastic imbalance between supply, which is very finite with Bitcoin, and a global demand for something that can hedge against inflation. So I think Bitcoin is going to have a tremendous run, and I think a lot of altcoins, even though they might look like a better deal, are going to have a hard time keeping pace with the explosive growth rate. Now, over time, as the S-curve flattens out, then there'll be opportunity for explosive growth with other coins or cryptos. But I would always keep accumulating Bitcoin as part of the program for your portfolio. So I just wanted to put that out there, guys. That's kind of my take on what's likely probable. And again, we need more time, but you have to kind of take all the things into consideration. But the growth rate potential here is really astronomical. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, now that being said, we just had the futures go live last night, 6 p.m. Eastern. So let's take a look real quick at our Bitcoin price chart. And essentially what we're seeing right now is we took a dip. Basically, bears are in control at 19,181. If we see price break back above here, bulls will be back in control and off to the races. Last week, we saw basically price selling off into the futures open, which was, this is a 15-minute chart. We can go to 60 to kind of speed things up here. So basically we saw a dip. Sorry about that. Let's get to the front of the chart here. We kind of saw a dip into the futures open here, and then the whole week we basically went up. So this was the 10th when the futures had opened. This was the dip down into the futures, and then we had basically run up all week, culminating in about a 30% move higher. So with the start of this move, this was when the futures opened. We had a drop, small pullback. People were like, oh, I saw a lot of comments about Bitcoin crashing, but not really, not in the big scheme of things. That's just a minor pullback. And basically now we're going to be looking at that level there. For me is key in the next 24 hours is this 10,181. So it looks like a fairly stable start to the CME futures. They are the big, that's the big one. The CBOE was a smaller contract. This one's big contract. This one's almost equivalent to $100,000 worth of Bitcoin for one contract because they hold 5 Bitcoin. So this is for the institutional guys. So that's pretty much it. We'll see how this progresses through the week. As far as looking at price targets for Bitcoin for the week, again, we kind of fall back to this parabolic curve chart. We're still playing out in this curve. This week we would be bumping our head, believe it or not, up into like the 40,000 range. That would be quite a week if we did that. So we'll see, but there's room there for that, and this adjusts if price lags or falls out of this curvature. Then we'll adjust that as need be. But right now we're kind of following this. So, and right now the price action is such that we're still seeing the types of smaller and tighter pullbacks, and so like it spools up kind of and then kind of climaxes. But I think that would be one in a series of those types of moves that we see. Also, you notice that the volume is moving up, and volume increasing in Bitcoin equals price increasing in Bitcoin. So that's all looking very bullish at the moment. So that's pretty much it for this week. I will catch you guys on the next video tomorrow. We'll get into some other coins, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. That S-curve adoption looks like also being reflected into price at the moment, and if that's the case, we got a lot more upside to go. Don't be afraid about getting into Bitcoin now. It's not too late. Thanks guys for watching. If this helps, please hit the subscribe button below, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care guys. Bye.